Hi, so I'm Janet Moffat, and my husband Doug Moffat, and I've lived in Stow since 1993. And we both are retired biology teachers. Doug was at Middlesex Community College, and I was at Weston High School. So for us, so what do you want to do when you retire? Going to Africa was way up there on the list. So we took two tours back to back. So we started with a Rhodes Scholar tour in Kenya that went from Kenya into Tanzania. And here's the general map. We started in Nairobi, went to Amboseli, Ngorongoro, Serengeti, Masai Mara, and then flew back to Nairobi. So I think that was like 13, 14 days. And then this is sort of it, closer view. We left in mid-June and returned in mid-July. And so then this is actually the one we signed up for first, to see gorillas in Uganda. And we started looking at prices to fly and thought, as long as we're there, we should do more. Yeah. And then snowballed, but from there. But this was presented from the New England Zoo to go with the host of their director, John Linehan, and involved trekking in to see gorillas and chimpanzees as part of the trip through Uganda. So we started in Entebbe, which is on Lake Victoria, flew to the southwest, and then went up to Bwindi I'll show you later. Well, Bwindi International Impenetrable Forest and Kasisi Forest for the chimpanzees, and then drove back. So we started in Nairobi. Rhodes Scholar is really good. They're very organized, and they have the first day to sort of like get your feet wet, get time adjusted. And so we were just in their zoo, National Museum/zoo, where we got to hang out with pythons. This is a mud turtle, and probably even cooler was this slippery, soft-shelled turtle, which I didn't know existed. And those guys get into the mud, and they like to be in the mud, and they can do something called cloacal breathing. Oh. If you know where the cloaca is, it's instead of an anus. So they're breathing through their bottom so they can stay down longer. Oh, wow. I know. Then one of the things along the tour, Doug and I and everybody else was very impressed with the work on conservation that the countries were doing. They really were trying to be proactive. Kenya, for example, has outlawed trophy hunting. And this was the giraffe center outside Nairobi, where they have a subspecies of giraffe, the Rothschild, which were losing land in parts of Kenya. And then somebody on their own initiative brought some into the outside Nairobi, which is now inside Nairobi, and they started this giraffe center. If you're interested, they actually have a little mansion you can stay at in the mansion, and the giraffes will come to your window and you can feed them. But that wasn't in our financial. And they're like, the reason they're different, I wrote it down. Let's see, they have this distinctive coat pattern. The patches are less jagged than those of the Maasai giraffe, which are the ones we see, lighter in color, creamy, rather than white network of lines, which pretty much means you need to know giraffes to tell them apart. But this is a particular, and they've been very successful in getting them reproduced and reintroduced back into wild areas. Most of the time in Kenya, Tanzania, we were in these safari vehicles. There's Doug. He found him just the right height for him, so he could stand up and see the distance. There was in some of the parks, there was a whole variety of people. Amboseli, people I think were flying in just from Nairobi for the day. and it was a little bit busier, but not Masai Mara.
I see in that bottom corner, the top is there. Can people sit down and close the top?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
on
that
long
would
distance ones, that's what they would do. They would only put it up when we were out on the
Like
safari looking for animals. Yeah.
If something were to come over that you didn't want to come in your, I don't.
Like a rainstorm. That did happen one
More
day.
frequent than some lion coming in.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of cheetahs going on top of those vehicles, but they're apparently relatively friendly.
And yet, they're curious.
It's curious, yeah. Yeah, and the guides are really amazing. They know what to do and where to go. And the roads out there are these dirt roads all over the place, and they're talking to each other on the radio, like there's a cheetah over here, and everybody's heading, and we're looking around going, where do you know? I know. Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So this is Amboseli, and one of the cool advantages is seeing Mount Kilimanjaro, which is a freestanding mountain in the middle. It's actually in Tanzania. Amboseli is a small park in Kenya with huge variation of wildlife. It's both wetlands and grasslands. And so if you're hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, I think you go to Tanzania. But we were seeing lots of elephants there and some baby elephants. This guy's probably a month old. They're only 250 pounds at birth after a gestation of 22 months for mom. Then they'll hang out with mom for 4 years and still be suckling. Yeah. So cute, though, aren't they? And I know, they move in the groups. They're matriarchal groups. There's one head elephant, and usually the oldest one. And the females stick together.
Nice to see they have their tusks.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a really, and let's see, they eat about 300 to 400 pounds in a day and drink 30 to 40 gallons of water. So the climate change is affecting the climate in the grasslands, and so there's been a couple of worrisome years where they're not getting rains, and the wetlands are drying up, and the elephants are getting all together and stuff like that. So it is a worry. And speaking of tusks, I don't know if anybody recently watched a nature show called The Big Tuskers. I was watching that show, and I'm oh, that guy is it has to be a big tusker. There's only 30 of them still. And they were talking about Kenya has been, for the last 40 years, has worked really hard to limit poaching. And they have guards out, and the Maasai work with them. So they've been really making an effort.
Two? I only see one tusk.
Just coming out there. And so this one was fun. So you see, it looks like it's going to sit on the vehicle, doesn't it? It didn't. And there's a whole lineup of vehicles behind and vehicles to the front.
Oh, God, he's in.
And it turns out, this is Doug's guide pointed out, on this side is a bunch of groups of females and baby elephants. On this side were a bunch of individual male elephants. So I'm God, he's so smart. He's standing there, adding to the wall, making sure that the other elephant, the males, stay away from his females. So, at least as long as the trucks was there, it was working. I don't know what the next step was. And as a biology teacher, the textbooks always talk about mutualism, and they put the cattle egret on the back of the elephant. So it's oh, they didn't make it up. It really happened.
Wow.
There were a lot of them. It's the egret is good about taking the bugs off the back of the elephant, and I didn't realize how much elephants like to are good at swimming. So this was actually in Uganda. We watched them swimming across a long channel, and there was one young male who wanted us to go away. So he was like splashing the water, saying, "It's mine, it's mine." This is also in the Queen Elizabeth National Park in Uganda, which is an interesting park because this village was here before the park. They allowed the village to stay. There's actually a body of water off here for the fishing culture. And you can see the elephants over there. Part of the deal is you can stay here, but you can't restrict where the elephants go, or the wildlife comes. You have to keep it open. So there were multiple elephants walking just to the back of this house, and you sort of saw them all sort of spread out, and then getting closer and closer to the house to let the elephants go by. But it was just sort of a daily, or part of the life. Imagine elephant walking through our backyards. We saw a lot of giraffes, and they're very cool. They're going to live 20 to 28 years, and according to what I read, they can actually see 20 miles away with that big tall neck in the grasslands like this. So I feel like this one's, they're all watching.
Something over there.
Yeah. They can eat up to 75 pounds of food, and they have, they like the acacia trees a lot. They also will live along with the zebras, and it was really interesting to see all the different animals like living together. It turns out the zebras like to eat the grass, and the giraffes that don't worry about it because they eat the trees. But the zebras appreciate the longer view that the giraffes have, and the giraffes appreciate being part of a whole big herd rather than just a couple on their own. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Look at the length of the tongue on that one.
Oh, that was.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Wait, go back. Yeah, so that's its tongue.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's probably only half the tongue, huh?
About half of it, yeah.
A nice black color. They're famous for their black color, and something I read called it prehensile because it can actually wrap around the stems and pull the leaves off and stuff.
Janet, do zebras and giraffes, do they have the same enemy predators?
Yeah, I mean the main predators of lions and hyenas, cheetahs, leopards, yeah. Particularly the young. Like I think both of them lose like half their young, partly to predation. And then they do groom each other, and they do a lot of neck rubbing. I didn't get a good photo, but we were seeing lions in herds.
Right.
Yeah,
We counted 20 in that herd.
yeah. You can see the male up here. The rest are females with their sisters and children, so it's usually biologically related. These guys, we had found a carcass of a buffalo not far away that had been picked clean, so I think this was like they'd gotten a good meal and sleepy. I was like, it's like after they just had Thanksgiving dinner, just put a football game in front of them and they're happy. Yeah. And this is the other male lion that was part of the pride, and our guide Kipto said that this guy frequently leaves the pride when the safari vehicles show up because he's introvert. He's very elegant. And here they are resting up. They can spend 16 to 20 hours a day just resting. A little more resting.
Really resting.
Really.
Yeah.
And this is a Cape buffalo that had actually been taken down by this lion. Well, one of the women in our group was lucky enough to see it happen. But this was like probably 90 minutes after the lion had taken it down, and you can see like the flies were all moving in, and the safari trucks were also moving in. There was like a whole parade of the trucks. This guy didn't care. We were surprised that there was only one, like waiting to see all kinds of other things. And they thought this was a young male that had been kicked out of the pride because he was too old for the pride and was on his own. And so theoretically, that's his buffalo to eat however much he wants, and then go and lie down for 16 hours. In Uganda, Queen Elizabeth National Park, we found this pair. And this is where the zoo director's like, oh, he's courting. And the zoo director was correct. Hold on, a little bit of pornography. And that's about how long it lasted. That was it. And then they're like, yeah. You can see he's been mucked up a bit. We were waiting for it to happen again because like sometimes it'll be like every 20 minutes. They'll do it multiple times in a day for the female to ovulate. But didn't happen while we were there. They just took a nice long nap together. And we did drive by the next morning, and they were still together, but didn't do any more copulation. Here we saw a leopard. Can you see it in the tree? I benefited from my son's 100 to 400 millimeter lens because this leopard was probably like on the other side of 117. It was pretty far away. Just hanging out in the trees. They're nocturnal, usually in their hunting, majority, and then they'll get the prey and drag it up into the tree and keep it away from all the cheetahs and lions and everything else that's willing to take their hard work. Hyenas.
What kind of tree is that?
I think it's acacia. Is that, what do you think, Doug? Acacia?
Yeah, not sure. Yeah.
That was the dominant tree.
Big tree.
Yeah. Here it moved. Can you see it? And this is like super close up, just sort of could be waiting for something to come underneath. We came across a cheetah, and I think I was mentioning they're talking on the radio, and so somebody said there's a cheetah, and the safari vehicles were like, "Rrr." And Doug's wagon was there first, and he said it was just chaos around the cheetah. And then one of the research, what was that guy?
A vehicle with rangers in it.
Ranger, yeah, showed up, and everybody started behaving. And we lined up, and then you got so many minutes to see the cheetah and then move on, which I really respect the fact that they're doing that because it both benefits us, gets more people coming, and keeps the cheetah safe. He or she didn't care that it was surrounded by vehicles. Just laid there. I was waiting for it to like swat.
They're used to it.
They're used to it, yeah. And I think that for the most part, they must feel safe. Like they don't feel like they're in danger by the humans. So that's good too. I learned that this black stripe here actually helps cut down the glare from the sunlight, and so that helps them see further.
Like football players.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you see one run?
No, would have been great, huh? Yeah. Cheetahs are the most rare of the cats and the most endangered. In fact, we used to talk about in class about the fact that they're so genetically similar that you can take a skin graft off one cheetah and it'll take on another cheetah because genetically they just don't have a very big gene pool. And so, but they're very
That was an
beautiful.
amazing picture.
It was very close.
Wow.
And I will say, this cameras are so cool these days because my camera had an animal focus. So I know that's what I said too. So the animal focus, if it'll focus on an eye, and so I'm terrible at focusing, and it would just find the eye. You could see a little bowl, like a little circle on the eye, and focused right in.
Yeah, and the background is out of focus. See how
Oh, the
beyond?
The
shallow
grass,
depth
yeah.
of field.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is gorgeous.
That is just wonderful.
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful.
It's a beautiful animal.
National Geographic, I love that.
I know.
Famous biology.
There we go. And the antelope are the bottom of the food chain in Africa, right? I kept wondering, so what did it look like 100 years ago? It's so cool now, but there must have just been massive herds. These are the impalas. You see one male with the horns and his harem. And they, I was looking up that the antelope are not related to deer. Deer have antlers that fall off, and these guys have horns, is one of the huge differences between them. But so they hang out together in big herds. They're really important in the ecosystem. Food for predators. Munching the grass is really important for maintaining the prairies. Otherwise, you'd find all the bushes and stuff moving in, taking over. So they help maintain biodiversity in that way. They're really important part of the ecosystem. And these are Grant's gazelles. Yes. There's an M. Oh no. I get them all confused. So, what is it? Thompson's?
Thompson's gazelle.
Yeah. Hartebeest, I never heard of.
H-A-R-T-E. Beast, yeah.
That's a Grant's gazelle there, which is, and this is a water buck. So these are all different species in the antelope group. I know. Can you imagine carrying that around all day? But they're beautiful. And once again, they hang out with zebras. This is Thompson gazelle. It's interesting to watch them for a little bit because they're very aware that they're the bottom of the food chain. And their tail is communicating a lot to the other gazelles. Their ears are moving all the time. It seems like they're feeding all the time, but they'll like nibble for a little bit and then look up and around. So everybody's like focused on who's coming, am I safe, while they're eating.
Do they have any other defenses against predators other than running or just maybe hiding because of their color?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I was reading their spine is particularly flexible, which also, like one of the strategies of prey, the predators are coming full speed and can't change course, and the prey goes zigzag. Like I used to watch the rabbits run away from my dog, and he'd still be going straight, and they'd be like, so that kind of thing, and the herds.
The horns don't serve any purpose.
Well, I think if you probably can be helpful, but probably more on hierarchy amongst each other. But I'm sure they use them if the opportunity is, if it's needed. These are topies, which I didn't know existed till I was there. And they have blue jeans with yellow socks. Very fashionable. Topies.
T-O-P-I.
Yeah. And these are elands, which are some of the bigger antelope. They're good size. They've got those straight horns and the stripes.
Is there a tag on that one there in the front, on the right?
This guy? Where are you seeing it?
In the middle, I'm sorry.
This guy? That's his ear. But,
Glasses on, sorry.
yeah. A lot of them were, we saw, especially on like lions, we'd see a big tracking collar and stuff. Yeah. I don't remember it on any of the antelopes. They might have been able to get something more subtle. Who knows nowadays? And then in Uganda, there's another antelope, the cobs. And I saw, this was like 2 seconds. And the showed it to the zoo director. He said, yeah, that's about it. And okay.
So they could be overtaken by a lion or something.
Yeah, that's true. Fair point. Yeah. And you know these guys?
Water buffalo?
Wildebeest. Yeah, in big groups. They're not quiet. They're like chit-chatting and grunting and all the time. And they're hanging out also with the zebras a lot. And this was one close up, drinking some water. I always was told they look like an animal designed by a committee because they have longer legs and sort of like a horse, but they've got the antlers. And they're famous for their migrations. And we were not there during their migration, but we saw this one section, and I don't know if, so in the way back there's a line, and then there's another line, and then here's the guys coming towards us, and they were just full speed ahead, pretty much one at a time. They happened to be crossing a road, which you see this lineup of the safari vehicles while it's, and I'm like, so how's this going to work? There's like thousands of them. Are we waiting? And at one point there was a very brief break. One of the safari vehicles like moved forward, and then everybody did, and they found a different way, or paused for a minute.
Trying to change with the climate change?
Yeah, our guide was saying that the migrations have been more, haven't been as dramatic and more confused. So I did look. There was actually like a migration, wildebeest migration tracker online, and it looked like this was the very beginning of the migration, and it did continue. They were like showing.
The rains aren't consistent.
Right, exactly. So they get confused, and yeah, and of course there's the development. They're trying to like work it through. I give Tanzania and Kenya a lot of credit, like I was saying. For the elephants, let's say in Amboseli, the ones we saw by Kilimanjaro, they migrate to a patch, and there's a town that's been growing up through their migration, and they were having lots of problems. So a group made like an 18-meter wide corridor and electrified both sides of the corridor, so the elephants now know that, and other animals know the corridor is safe. And then when we stopped, we were at on the road, and at the road they have the wires up above and like little wires hanging down below, so at elbow or shoulder height for the elephants. So that again is telling them stay in the path, and they've had a lot less conflict between the farmers and the elephants, and I think they're doing. I can't tell you for sure what they're doing with the wildebeest, but it was pretty impressive. And then the zebras, who are horse-related, there's a lot of them. They, again, will have one male with a harem, the stallion with his mares and their offspring. They do a lot of nuzzling. This happens to be an older one. You can see the black stripes with the brown is a younger zebra. Oh, I forgot to mention, every zebra's stripe is different, so it's like a fingerprint. If you want to identify a zebra, find their fingerprint.
So they're basically white and black stripes,
Yep. Well, and brown,
Yeah.
if they're younger. Yep.
but they're not black and white stripes.
That's for the discussion over cookies. So here's a Cape buffalo, which is not the same as a water buffalo. They're the buffalo of Africa. They are incredibly dangerous, actually. And last fall, there was a trophy hunter who was killed by a Cape buffalo.
I thought you said they were outlawing trophy.
That's in South Africa.
Oh.
So not in
Okay,
Kenya.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
These guys live in big gregarious groups. And everybody's like, oh, are you going to see the big five when you go to Africa? And I was like, oh, there's a big five? Turns out they're the five animals most dangerous to hunters. Like, oh, okay. Lions, leopards, buffalo, rhino, elephants. Yeah. Yeah, they're not, but that not for hunters, I guess. Actually, hippos are the #1 killer of humans.
Really?
Animal, yeah. They like water, and might drink 6 to 9 gallons of water a day. Yeah.
Same family.
Same family, yep. And here they get an egret hiding on them. I just like that photo.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ram the hell out of you.
It almost looks like a hairdo.
Before and after.
And then these black rhinos, again, they were way far away. And we went for quite a trip to find them. But they were in Masai Mara National Park, and they have like 30 to 50 there. Kenya has been able to increase the population of the black rhino from 400 to over 1,000. So they are working, yeah. So, but the...
If anybody's interested, the difference between a black rhino and a white rhino, which I never understood till this trip, is that the black rhino, the upper lip is kind of pointy, and they hide in the trees and pluck leaves and stuff off. And the white rhinos live out in the middle of the grasslands. And the word white rhino came from the Dutch wijd, meaning wide, just the wide, straight upper lip, because they eat grass instead of having the pointy upper lip for eating leaves. And because they're out in the open, it was easier for hunters to see them and shoot them. And as a result, they're very, very critically endangered.
But that was our one sighting, was way far away eating the bushes. But it was fun. We saw other kinds of things on the way. Saw lots of hippos. The first time we saw hippos, they were in some kind of big mud puddle, and it stank so bad. Oh. But this one was much better.
Get your attention in a kayak, wouldn't it?
I would. You'd never be in a kayak in this puddle. No.
Hippos dangerous to people? Do they?
They charge them.
What do
They charge people. They kept saying, if you do not get between a hippo and the water, you're going to lose. They're much faster than you would think they are. Like you look at them and you go, oh, they can't move fast. And they're very agile. We were watching some just make it right up the cliffs, Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Between them and the water, they feel endangered and they charge.
Yeah.
Huh.
They're very big.
I thought they were a water animal mostly.
So, but they can't really swim. That surprised me. I thought they live in the water, but they're not good swimmers.
Is it more at the edges?
Yeah, they can. And one of the places we stayed at was right along a small river full of hippos. And they were having quite the loud conversations in the middle of the night. I was sure there was a hippo inside our tent. But it turned out they couldn't get up from the river there. But they do get out at night and go onto the grasses. And we were watching some a couple of times getting their nighttime grass dinners. I know, they're so snuggly. And then we had baboons along the way. They just sort of came and went, little guys too. At one of the hotels, there's the mob of mongoose. So all of these are little tiny mongooses that had been running around the hotel. And then they found each other. This is actually artificial turf. And they just mobbed together. And then the part that was, so all of that I showed you, we were in these vehicles. And it was very easy. And then in Uganda, we did one day to see the gorillas and one day to see the chimpanzees, and we actually had to walk in. So they have habituated the animals, and it's a very long, thoughtful process to get the animals used to having humans around. And then you go, this was the communal place, like the auditorium. There were about 100 of us, and they separated people into different groups. We were in the Tindadahine group, which that's the name of that particular gorilla family. And other groups of 8 to 10 people went with their guides to see different families. So they spread us all out throughout the Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. This was our guide. And these were our protectors. One was in the front, one was in the back, and they were protecting us from forest elephants. So should a forest elephant come down the trail, they don't like humans. They're not habituated to humans, and they're very dangerous. These guys will shoot in the air or in the ground. They don't try and shoot the elephant, just enough to scare them to go off. And I will say, well, with the chimpanzees, we used to have researchers come and present to my classes. And one of them said that a requirement to be a researcher in the field was you had to be able to climb up a tree like 10 to 12 feet. I was like, oh, I'm out. But it's beyond the reach of the elephant was why, not to worry about the chimpanzees. So they look very intimidating, like, oh, must be in danger. We're in danger from the elephants, not from anything human, or from the gorillas. So at the same time that's getting organized, there were 3 trackers who had gone out and were finding the family group. They had been there the day before and had seen where they'd gone to bed, and then they went out the next morning to find them, and then we set off on the trail. Here's what the terrain looks like. You can sort of see why it's the impenetrable forest, and it's probably why the gorillas are still there, because right outside the forest, people have their agriculture, It's a huge population of, in a growing population in East Africa. A lot of young kids, but it's not really agriculture friendly property, so terrain. I did hire a porter. This was Dixon. Dixon cost, base fee was $20. And I did give him a bigger tip. He carried my backpack. He held me over logs. One time he tied my shoe. That was a little awkward. But Dixon, there was a whole group of men. He said that they get hired as porters like twice a month only, which surprised me. He had a couple of kids, and he had a $100 fee to pay for their schooling. And so I did give him a tip higher than $20.
School is free, but they have to buy school uniforms.
Yeah, and supplies. Yeah.
And other supplies, and that's about $100 a year, which is tough for them to come up with.
So this is along the trail, and if you've gone up the White Mountains, this is White Mountains go up and this was not. This was like sort of up like that. However, then at some point you go off the trail and it's freshly whacked, walking over the vines, tripping over the vines, and then we could hear the trackers sort of giving whistles and stuff to tell them where they were. And then when we found the trackers, everybody got together, we put on masks, and they gave you 60 minutes with the gorillas. And she started timing, and at some point she's like, you have 8 minutes left.
Is the mask to prevent disease?
Yeah, particularly from humans to the gorillas, but yeah.
Closely enough related so
Yeah.
they could suffer from our diseases, vice versa. But it's
Yeah.
mainly to protect the gorillas.
A friend who did it pre-COVID didn't wear masks. So I think it might have been sort of an awareness that developed when people were wearing masks. So this is the silverback that led the family. He was there sitting for a little bit, decided it was time to go, headed off. You can see why he's called the silverback. So he's in charge. He's the patriarch of the group. We didn't see him after that, but we did hear him a couple of times. He was hooting to tell people, to tell his group where he was. And then we were left to just observe the gorillas close up. I mean, this guy's further away. He'd be at, but not that far.
Were you allowed to touch them?
Oh, no. I was confused by their direction because they said it's okay to like make eye-to-eye contact, but sometimes they don't take it well. And so I was like, wait, maybe So she was just lying there, and then she got up, did a little chest beating, stepped sort of in my direction, tripped over a vine, did a somersault, and then just lay there like, oh my God, I just did that in front of everybody. I was so pleased that she did that, actually, because it's exactly what I had been doing. And I'm like, she lives out here. Seemed like a...
So she was mimicking you.
She was, thank you. She was trying to make me feel better, Bill. I thought so.
So how close could you get?
She was almost running over my, like I had to step back so she didn't roll on my toes in this case. Yeah, and then there's a little bit later, let's see, this guy. Oh, no. And then we moved to a slightly different spot, and there's a older gorilla with the younger one. And she just sat there and in the roots. She'd found some, I forget what the tree root was, but you can see her, and she was totally focused on getting that tree root eaten. She's a,
Go back one photo briefly. If you look at the trees in the background, you see how they have moss and stuff growing up the trunks of the trees?
Yep.
They pull a lot of that off of a tree, and then she's eating the roots of the ivy or the vines or whatever that was growing up the tree. And that's what she's in the midst of.
Not pretty sweet.
Looks like a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah. Compost pile.
it does.
Wow.
And then, yeah. This guy, or this female probably, was in the bushes. You could barely see her, and while we were standing there, she sort of ate her way out of the bushes. At one point, I thought she had a bag of potato chips in there. It was so loud. It was like, dum, dum, dum. But yeah, she's in there, tucked away. I was just fascinated by their hands and feet and how similar they are to humans and different, like the big toes way further out. They have a thumb. Yeah. They're one of the 5 primates with opposable thumbs.
Now, that one that was hidden in the bushes, sometimes the groups go out to look at the gorillas and they're all hidden in the bushes like that and never come out.
Yeah, our guide said that.
Happen on your trip, and so we were really lucky.
Yeah, I guess.
And were they strictly herbivores, or do they eat insects?
No, only if it comes their way. I think. I know chimpanzees are hunters, but I haven't heard about gorillas.
Yeah, pretty much all.
This one's coming down the trail, and we're all pretty much standing along the trail, and he's barreling towards us. So we all step aside, and the trackers come, and they had machetes, and they used the side of their machetes to tap him to say, get back on the trail, you've gone far enough. So, and it wasn't a problem. They took care, they knew each other, and he was just young, wanted to see what he could get away with. And then a couple days later, we were at Kasisi, and we went in to see the chimpanzees. The hiking was much less treacherous, strenuous going in to see the chimpanzees. It wasn't that far. But I'll tell you, like having read Jane Goodall's biography and having listened to researchers come every year and talk about doing their chimpanzee research, I had so much more appreciation for what it was really like. Like Jane Goodall in particular would have been like, there wouldn't have been this big wide trail through the woods, right? And the researchers are like going out in the morning, trying to, finding their chimpanzees, following them, staying with them until they go to bed so they know where they've nested. Then they go back to their bed dorms and stuff. And then before dawn, they go out and find where they left them so that they can keep track of them. So Annette was our guide. This vine was an important vine to the chimps because it had a texture that like sandpaper, so it gave them a little bit more to hold on to as they were climbing up and climbing down. A lot of the time at the beginning in particular, I don't know, challenge you to see the chimp, but they're like up there and your neck's like this. But it's just right there. So it's very cool. I'm very sympathetic, but it's not seeing a lot of chimp. They're a little bit better view. But then this chimp was like practicing to be a model. It was the guide said there's a lot of different personalities amongst a group, and this guy in particular seemed to be the extrovert. And hey, today I want my picture taken, because he sat there for a really long time. I think we were there for 20 minutes. Here's his hands. You can see his thumb and beautiful fingers.
It looks like he's in deep contemplation.
He does.
He was in a place where a good-sized tree had come down, and you could see actual sky above you, because it was very, very dense forest we were in. And so he was sitting there in the sunny opening.
Huh.
A lovely earlobe. There's the thinker.
I think.
And this is just like, all the groups set out independently, and they all converged in this one area, because this is like the area where the chimps were visible. And so here's the crowd of people, everybody taking photos. You could see most of them wearing masks like they're supposed to. What's that?
It didn't scare him off.
It didn't, no. Yeah. So they've been habituated as well. It's and we also had a couple of guards with us on that day to keep the forest elephants away.
Did you have to worry about snakes? I see guards wearing rubber boots.
I forget. Yeah, I think it's more for the mud. And then here's, because I know there's birders in the group. We were seeing, and Doug and I we were seeing a wide variety of birds along the way. Yeah, it looks like yeah. So here's a African jacana bird, the Jesus bird that walks on water. They have those like in Central America as well. So the one that looked like a bald eagle was a fish eagle, because we're all like, really, bald eagles? But no. This is a honey eater. Let me double check. I just get it wrong. Bee eater. Sorry. And the bee eaters are sort of like the hummingbird of Africa. So they're about the same size as a hummingbird, but they don't eat pollen. They eat bees, like the bee eater. And
The one on the right, right?
What's that?
The colorful one that's up on
This one here. Yeah. And this is a paradise flycatcher. The ostrich pink legs means it's in mating season, just to attract. Were both genders pink, Doug, or just the ladies?
Not sure.
Okay. Hiding down here is a bustard. They're pretty big birds. A black heron. The crowned crane is one of the symbols for Uganda. And then this is a saddle-billed stork. And these were not all in the same location. So and there were a lot more. A friend of mine who's a pretty serious birder went on a safari, and she and her birding family were like disappointed with how little time they spent staring at the birds. So if you're like really looking for birds, be sure you go on a birding trip versus the safari trip where they're going to let you look at it for a couple of minutes and then move on. But Doug and I had a day in Entebbe between tours. So we took a tour to see the shoebill, and this is a swamp bird that's 3 to 5 feet tall. Yeah, and we were super lucky. The guide came out and said like, oh, it's very rare, it's very rare, it's very rare. And this one happened to be out there within 5 minutes of paddling. We had to cross Lake Victoria. And this is it, like both hunting and staring at us. Can you see his eye? And then he'd go back to hunting, looking for things in the mud. Catfish.
The vegetation was kind of floating on water and had water under it.
Yeah.
He was staring at the vegetation by his feet.
And right before we were going to leave, grabbed it. And there's a big catfish. And then we got to listen to it crunch the head. And so it wasn't going to run away like the catfish. And then he swallowed it whole. And then he gets a couple of drinks of water, flew, 50 feet into the bushes where he'd sit there the rest of the day and digest. So these are biologically, they're in their own genus. So they're very unique, like evolutionarily, they're on their own path.
Not that distant from pelicans?
That's what I was going to say, Molly.
Not sure, but they're not in the same.
No, not that close.
Yeah. And then I have to include the human animals that we met along the way and stuff. And these are Maasai. That's a shaman. And it was just so lovely. The people in Africa, that were geared for tourists, were very much geared toward making us comfortable and their own survival. And it made me appreciate the fact of how easy my life is and how much I have as opposed to saying I want more. This particular group of women were at the resort. We stayed outside of Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. They had joined formed this community, and they would come in and sing. We heard them in another resort, and they then took the donations and used those donations and split it amongst each other. And the year before, they'd managed, everybody in the group got a pig that they were then going to raise. And that year, and this 2025, they were working for a goat, maybe, something but they worked really hard for it and would sing. They figured out a way, like it's a mutualistic relationship between the tourists who are coming and them. It helps them in so many ways. These guys who are working with tourists, like John was the shoebill man. She's a storyteller in a swampy area. This man was working at one of the hotels. A lot of them have 3 years of college to get to be in the tourist world. And they work, it's a good position. They kept saying, send people, tell them to come. The COA was this super, super nice guy. He was there at 6:30 when we woke up and at 8:30 at night when we went to bed. He said he would be there for, 2 or 3 months, 7 days a week he'd work. He'd take all his money, go back, and that's what he had for the rest of the year because that's when the season, it was the tourist season and those are his options for money for his family. So I really admired both the spirit of the people and the sharing that they had, and also how hard they were working to keep.
This is really important because these national parks, these animal preserves, take up a tremendous amount of land in their countries. It preserves the wildlife, but then the tourists come in and bring so many dollars into their country, and it's important that that money make its way to the people, and then those dollars coming into the people reconcile them to having such large parts of their country set aside as parks to preserve the animals. And So it works out well.
I didn't,
How do you see the future? You mentioned there's massive amounts of young kids.
yeah.
It's still traditional over there to have quite large families, a lot of kids, and ultimately it's not sustainable to
No.
keep having families that big. But, I'm not gonna come into the guy's country and say, you guys are nuts to have so many kids.
There's a lot of country with aging populations. Just saying. So, the boda was a very popular form of transportation. The motorcycle. And you can see how much they can put on one boda. Sometimes there were 4 people on one boda. It was a little scary. It was definitely scary. This one, I sort of laughed. That's their supermarket. It's like, whoa. It's like a convenience store. But here's a school. We visited one school, and they had 100 kids in one class. And yeah, and I asked the principal about discipline. He said, "Oh, that's not a problem. They might have to, the distance to walk to the school, going to get rid of a lot of energy, and their parents see their education as crucial. And their parents are if the teacher calls, says there's a problem, the parents are on the teacher's side." It's like, that's not like in, and we'd see in the mornings just whole groups of kids going off to school.
Do they wear uniforms?
Yes. And but they had to buy their own uniform, and this was often a hardship on their part.
Let me ask, is there a lot of technology there, like phones and stuff?
We're in the middle of the Bwindi Impenetrable Forest, and my porter's like talking on his cell phone. So yes, or we got a nature tour from a Maasai man, and he had his phone on, phone watching. This woman was an entrepreneur. She had a restaurant, and we went to the restaurant, and she had like, I don't know, 6, 8 dishes, Tanzanian dishes that we could choose from and then at the end, she was showing us how she could put all the pots on her head and do a dance and sing a song, and let me and anybody who wanted to put a pot on their head and did not sing a song.
So, right on her head, under the pots, she has a circular thing made out of banana leaves wrapped up to make a pad. And that's, the women over there will carry like 50-pound thing of water on their head. And so that circular pad on their head helps them to balance it up there and pad their head.
Yeah, when I got back and I'd find myself whining, I'd be like, I'm not carrying 5 gallons of water on my head.
And they walk with it.
And they walk with it so gracefully. Yeah.
Do you see much differentiation between the male role and the female role in the daily activities like gathering water?
It seemed like the women were doing more of it. The men were on motorcycles. Like their version of Uber is the boda, calling the motorcycle. So there was a lot of men like waiting for that kind of business. The women were definitely the majority of like the homework, housework and stuff was the women. These kids are collecting firewood because they're still using a lot of fire, or they could use it also to build fences or trellises. There were a bunch of tomato plants and things like that.
How about solar power?
We saw a lot of metal roofs, but not a huge amount of solar power.
Costs more money than a lot of them have.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, a lot of places you go through these towns, and they have not very elegant houses, kind of shacks close together, and a lot of just beaten bare dirt for the yard, but it was so neatly swept and everything. So even though their houses were kind of hovels, they took nice care of what they had.
Yeah, there's a lot of pride.
Just look at her clothes, her dress.
It's true.
I mean, how neat that is.
And the kids were such gems in Africa. They would come out and wave at the tourist vehicles. Big.
Doug was like the leader of the parade.
What were their diets like? I mean, their personal diets?
I don't know, you know.
Were they carnivores or?
Yeah, if they had the opportunity. You mean the humans?
How did they eat? Yeah.
We were always pretty sheltered. I mean, meat was definitely a part of what they offered us, and I'm sure was part of their diet, but I don't know how available it was based on limited amounts of money, you know. Yeah, I can't really say I learned a lot about how a person lived, but I did appreciate how hard it was and their lovely spirit. And
But they had animals, you mentioned, they had a pig or a goat
they might,
or something.
yeah. And then just thanks for listening. Thanks for participating.